Hello and welcome. I'm Tony Kindlespire, and I'm here with Josh Stevens of Trotec Laser. We're at the NBM show in Long Beach, California. And Josh, thank you for being here today. We're going to talk lasers and engraving. I'm sure you and your team get a lot of questions about lasers from sign shop owners, or maybe somebody has an awards promotional products shop. They've never used a laser. They don't know how they work, why they should have one. What do you like to tell those people?
Absolutely. A big thing with it is that with a laser system, there's a wide variety of materials that you can process. And having that wide variety of materials, you can tap into several different industries, whether it's awards in engraving, signage, printing. There's systems that can do cut out pre-printed materials with a vision system. So there's several different markets that you can tap into just because a laser can process so much.
Now, there are two types of lasers, correct? CO2 and fiber optic?
Correct.
What do you tell, say, the entry-level person versus the more advanced user, somebody who wants to upgrade their laser? What type of laser do you recommend? And are there advantages and disadvantages to each?
Well, really, it comes down to what you want to process in the end. For instance, you brought up that there are two different types of lasers, CO2 and fiber. CO2 is going to be used for your organic materials, so like it can process woods, plastics, glass, fabrics, paper, all sorts of different products. A fiber laser is going to be a little more specialized, and it's going to allow you to engrave metal directly and also put different types of marks on metal. And in addition to that, it'll also let you mark plastics. So fiber is a little more focused to a particular area, while CO2 gives you a wide range of possibilities.
You mentioned the variety of substrates that are engravable. Kind of a chicken and egg question here, but are technological advancements being driven by those substrates as more companies come up with more highly technical substrates, or is it the reverse, where advances in laser technology are what's sort of driving the substrate manufacturers to up their game?
Actually, it's kind of a combination of the two. There have been several technological advancements with the laser industry as far as improving how the beam is generated, so the laser sources, the motion systems, all sorts of different mechanical aspects. That's really driving what you can do with the laser. And improvements on that, of course, help the marketplace. Now, on the flip side, there are a lot of material suppliers and manufacturers that are improving their products and making them more friendly to lasers. So you get better quality right off the gate, or possibly less post-processing, less labor, things like that, particular to the material. So there's kind of a really good relationship of both driving everything forward.
I could probably ask this question of a substrate manufacturer, but as a representative of Trotec Laser, what about your customers? Are they also driving that technological innovation?
In a lot of cases they are. You know, the customers are out there trying out different things, different processes. They come back to us and say, hey, have you ever tried this? You know, this was a pretty easy way to do this. So we get feedback from customers all the time, which is really refreshing. And in many cases, you know, they're also providing suggestions of how it would make more sense for them to run the laser on a daily basis. So there's that constant feedback that's really helping to move things forward as well.
Interesting. Let me ask, and this is a question that could easily fill more time than we have now, but take the top three, if you will, wood, plastics, and metals. Can you give the viewers a handful of tips for each about techniques, how to process them, how to handle them?
Absolutely. You know,
start with wood.
Wood is a very interesting material to process on a laser, simply because with your engraving, you know, you can get different looks to the engravings. So, like if you want a more burnt look onto the wood, it's often best to defocus the laser, so bring its intensity out, the focal point. So once you defocus, it'll widen the beam, and then it'll actually burn the wood a little more, and that can give you a darker mark on those woods. Now, plastics in particular, there's several different types of plastics and things like that. Typically, if you're running like a plastic laminate, I would recommend, you know, taking your air cone off, your air assist cone off, and turning the air assist off while you're doing your engraving. That way you don't get dust settling back into your engraving. And that's often a big issue with certain colors, because you have a darker color on a lighter background, it might settle in and kind of distort it. And as far as metals, the big trick with metals is if you're using a CO2 laser and you're processing a coated metal or something like that, that's pretty straightforward and easy. But if you need to do bare metal with CO2, you would want to get a solution, a spray-on solution that you could use, such as Thermark or Cermark, and that would mark the metal. But a fiber laser is the most interesting to use with the metal products, simply because you can actually, just by changing your settings, get different looks and variations to your marks on the metal.
And all three, for both types of lasers, fiber and CO2, and all three of those substrates, wood, plastics, and metal, there are certain kinds that you want to use and certain kinds that you want to avoid, correct?
In some cases, yes. You have to be especially particular with plastics. Like if you're not using quote unquote a laser plastic, you want to be sure to check what is in that plastic. There are certain chemicals that can be in there that can be very hazardous to handle as an operator, just from the laser process. Any plastics with chlorine, fluorine, bromine, any of that, it's very dangerous to use. It has the potential of destroying your laser system, because the heat from the laser, when it breaks apart those molecules, it actually outgasses an acid.
And this is the kind of information that a Trotec representative would be able to help a customer with, obviously.
Absolutely.
What about multi-layered substrates where you have a coating, some material, maybe a back coating? Are there types of applications where those are highly desirable?
Most definitely. A lot of the applications for that type of material is going to be in the signage industry. So that way you could just engrave through the layers and get different effects instead of having to use, multiple different materials or colors or things of that nature. So there's definitely a huge perk to using it. Not to mention, just doing like simple name badges or little plaques for the trophies and things like that. It all kind of comes in handy with the multiple layer substrate.
And it's all about opening up possibilities for the business owner.
Yes.
We started this conversation along those lines of you can go after markets that maybe you weren't going after before. Are you seeing more A&E shops, awards and engraving shops, getting into the sign business by adding these larger pass-through machines?
Yes, we've actually seen a huge increase in the request for pass-through machines. There are several customers in the awards and engraving market coming to us and saying, I need the pass-through capability. And that's on a larger format system. And so really what it is that all of these shops are really expanding their businesses and growing. So that tells us that the market is really growing, the demand is there. And it's just absolutely great to see that when they come to us and say, hey, we're ready to buy a bigger, badder machine so we can have more capabilities and keep growing our business.
Music to the ears of shop owners now. Realistically, what challenges would you say that they should expect?
Yeah, it is, especially if we're talking about a pass-through system, there's a big safety concern there. Because anytime you're passing through or have a pass-through system, your laser is going to become a Class 4 laser. Class 4 means that you're completely exposed to laser radiation. And there are several safety requirements that you need to research and put in place before you start operation with the pass-through.
But it's all about return on investment.
Absolutely.
Josh Stevens with Trotec Laser, based in Canton, Michigan, but you've got representatives throughout the United States. Thanks for being here, Josh.
Thank you, Tony. It was a pleasure.
For more videos, visit sdgmag.com.